There's a big lazy sun slipping toward the sea, wearing a top-down rental, flying on Highway 1. It was just south of Carmel when you turned to me with your hand on mine. knew this was forever. Do it right down to the bottom of my soul. As true as the sound of steel belts on the highway and the foam on the waves as they ebb and they There's a cool rising sun in the east over Brooklyn. In bare skin we lie in the embers of last night. Eyes locked together as you take me in. Two hearts become one in the heavenly light. Right then, I knew this was forever. Do it right down to the bottom of my soul. As true as the sound of steel belts on the highway and the heat as we bathe in the afterglow. Well, we no longer travel that winding two-lane, and you look right through me when I get undressed as we kiss goodnight and go our separate ways. I close my eyes and remember the West. Right then, I knew this was forever. Do it right down to the bottom of my soul. As true as the sound of steel belts on the highway and the strange shape of love as it ebbs and it flows. The strange shape of love as it ebbs and it
Woo! All right. Hey there. Welcome to tonight's live stream. So tonight I just played a tune. Well, I just played a tune from Roger Street Friedman, one of my favorite artists, and I'm a little biased because I work with him all the time. But you've been hearing a bunch of this music lately on my show. And a couple weeks ago, I had Matthew Schneider, the bass player from the same band, on here, and we were talking about the recording process. So tonight, I figured, hey, let's bring in the man himself. We'll bring in Roger, and we'll be able to come in and talk about the making of this record and the last 3 albums. I just realized my air conditioner is on. I'm going to have to shut that off. First, I'm going to introduce Roger, and then I'm going to shut off my air. All right, here we go. So let me just pull over the chat window. Roger Street Friedman, hello. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm great. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Awesome.
Excellent.
You might be able to hear air conditioning running, and I'm going to leave you with Roger for 2 seconds while I shut that off. So, hey, Roger, how's it going, man?
Going great. I'm really into. I really love that riff. That was all Larry Campbell right there. Just,
Yeah. What a
took
great riff. And I think that song practically wrote itself with those parts.
Yeah, I mean, that was the groove. The groove I had when I wrote it. It was like, actually, it was a little different. It was like, and he came in and we were doing pre-production, and he said, "What about?" And that was the kind of thing that he brought to the whole recording, right? I mean, it was like
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
little change here, one little change there. It was like, oh my God, that's so much cooler.
Let's step back for a second. So, the Larry connection. Let's just talk about that for a minute because he did do some work on that on the second on the first record, and that's I think when you first came to know him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So talk about that. Just like how did Larry Campbell come on board the first time?
Well, so that was on the sessions for The Waiting Sky, and you remember Felix produced that record,
Right.
Felix McTeague, and he, when I was talking to him about, that was the first record I'd ever made, and he said, if you could have anybody in the world play on this record, who would you want? And I just said, I had seen Larry up at the barn playing for Levon, as his musical director, and just completely floored by his playing and also his presence as a human being. Just seemed like a really good guy. And I just said, hey, it would be great if we could get Larry Campbell. And sure enough, Felix was good friends with Byron Isaacs, who also played in the Levon Helm band, and he got Byron and Larry and Tony Leone to play on 4 of those tunes.
Right. Right. So now
One
that
session.
that was the one introduction that to Larry, but then you kind of kept in touch with him a little bit over the years, right?
Right. So, that was, you remember the story because you were part of it. We were playing together way back in I hate to say how long ago it was.
Yeah, it's all right. It was a
Like
while
the
ago.
mid 90s.
Yeah.
Let's say mid 90s. Maybe it was early 90s. And so then I took a long break and came back to it around 2008 or 2009. And when I made this record, it was sort of like just getting these songs down for posterity was the goal. And so, making a long story short, that one session was a lot of fun, and Larry came in and we did kind of what we did when we made the record. 4 of us got together in the room and just started working on the arrangements, and it was like a 10-hour day. And at the end of the day, he had brought his mandolin and violin and a couple of guitars, acoustic and electric, and I was helping him down to the car, and he said, I get called on a lot of sessions by producers who say you're really going to dig these tunes, and often it's sometimes it is, sometimes it's not the case, but you write really good songs, and I think you have something here. You should keep going. And that was like, wow, a lot of validation from somebody I really looked up to and admired. And so I emailed him over just like I sent him the record when it was finished, and he sent me an email back saying, sounds great, really great stuff. And a couple of emails here and there. And then I supported the Kickstarter for Larry and Teresa for for one of their records, and I got a Skype guitar lesson with Larry, and we turned on Skype, and he goes, "Hey, I know you." We had it was a great little guitar lesson, and then not long after that, and I broached the subject of producing a record, and he said, "Yeah, I'd be into that," and or I think he said, "I'll listen to anything," and and then I sent him a copy. Right after that, I sent him a copy of Shoot the Moon because he'd only had The Waiting Sky. And not too long after that, this was probably 2018. Peggy and I went to see him at. He and Teresa played in the Rockaways, and he was hanging out at the side of the stage. And I went up and said hello after, and he gave me a big hug. And he's like, "How you doing?" You know, and I said, "Hey, I have a whole bunch of new material. Were you serious about being into producing it?" And he said, "You know, I've listened to your records. I love your records. I would, you know, I'd love to listen to the demos." And that's sort of how it came about. I sent him the demos.
Right.
There were about between 25 and 30 songs, just acoustic guitar and vocal. And then I didn't hear anything for about 4 months. And I was like, okay, you know,
Maybe he's not into it.
he didn't like these. But I got an email out of the blue saying, finally got a chance to listen. This is really high quality stuff. And, you know, I hope we can work it out that we can make this record.
Nice.
And yeah, it was great. And, you know, came after working with him, you know, he's a busy dude. And he was, I think that same year producing Kinky Friedman's record and David Bromberg's record and touring with Hot Tuna and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that's how it came about. It was certainly a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Now, before we get too far ahead, I don't want to forget to check on the chat because I tend to forget that. So I'm just going to pull it up for a minute. I'm just going to overlay it right over my face for a second. Oh, okay. So actually, let's do the Zoom with chat so that only I'm covered. Hey, Jim, from intro playing Roger's guitar, if you can adjust. Oh, from the intro playing and Roger's guitar, if you can adjust. I don't know what you meant, Vin, so I will, I'll get back. Audio is a bit distorted. Gotcha. Okay. Hey, Roger, love your music. That's Bob Sears. Bob's a regular up in these live streams, so that's really awesome to see him in here. And let me just keep going here. What's up, Roger, from Vincent LaRussa, Bob Sears. Adam, Lucia's in here, one of my students. Lucia's a very talented young drummer, so she's in here hanging out. I like the new drum view. Thank you, Vin. Ross Amoroso, hello, everybody. Welcome, Ross. Always good to see you in here. All right, so we do have a few people populating in, which is good. So let's, I want to keep going, but one thing I want to say is, like, I'm not really going to... and if you're just joining us, I'm talking with Roger Street Friedman, who is our guest artist tonight to talk about the studio process. We're not really going to be talking about, you've done a million interviews where people go like, hey man, how'd you get started and blah, 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 and all this. We're not doing that. We're doing the studio process. And also as a songwriter, I want some of your feedback. But I think, like, on this last record, you know, we really did come in without too many sketches on these tunes. We kind of worked, you know, right on the spot, wrote out some charts, went in, tracked, made an adjustment, you know, tracked again. A lot of it was done right on the spot. And I think that spontaneity for me, I think, really made this a special record because I think kind of on the last one, the one before on Shoot the Moon, we kind of had almost every arrangement worked out, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I think with the exception of Every Day, which
right
was the very last song that I had kind of written it, and we just kind of did the same thing with that tune. And
yeah. But speak to you know, that difference, like the first, you know, the record before doing Shoot the Moon, the difference between working this time, and especially with Larry, but you know, the process was very different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. First thing I want to do is say hey to Vin. Here it is. I checked out his new video and it's awesome.
Oh yeah. You just put that out.
We'll work on that. And yeah, I mean, I think I kind of wanted to do it that way. And you know, I think Larry, you know, coming in as a producer and not knowing you guys, I think he wanted to be able to put his stamp on the thing and not have, you know, a whole bunch of prearranged stuff already worked out. Although he did ask what we did when we did play some of these tunes live.
Right.
that got incorporated. A lot of that got incorporated on. I'm thinking of like "Give It Another Go." You know,
Yeah, yeah,
a lot of that was pretty much how we did it. But there's something just really great about going into the room and working out all the parts between the four of us. And hey, what about this? And what about this here? And what about, you know what I mean? And it just, um, yeah, there were a lot of little magical moments, you know, that we were like, wow, that's great. You know, that's great.
yeah, yeah.
Of course, anytime, you know, I'm thinking about Rise, like when we were working out the parts, that he was in the room and the three of us were working out the parts, and he was saying, you know, that, you know, yes, we'd gotten all of our stuff worked out, and then he picked up the violin and started playing with us, if you remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
It just brought the thing to a whole nother level. So,
Yeah, it shows the, you know, the really what it does having an experienced producer like Larry, somebody that's really seasoned in, and especially in this type of music, right? I mean, I think it needed a special attention, and it sort of needed a different pair of ears to bring that to the table, right?
yeah, and I think I was really impressed with the level of engagement with every detail that he had, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
sit here like this, listening to the track, you know, listening to what we'd done, and you remember this? Like,
Yeah.
sit there like kind of covering his eyes and not saying anything for like what seemed like, you know. And then he'd go, and he'd point to somebody and go, let's try this, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was usually kind of brilliant.
Yeah, it was, and it was usually a very small detail that he picked out, and we would make that one tiny little change that made like all the difference on that track.
Absolutely. I mean, I just personally, I feel like I got a master class in production. Not that I could do what he does, but just understanding the way a track comes together, and
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
especially with the way every instrument sort of has a spot and speaks at a certain time, you know, verse to verse or section to section. It really, just on that Strange Shape of Love song, for instance, you know, the boom, boda, bump. It's all drums. There's nothing else happening there.
Right, right.
It's just like brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. It's too bad that we can't actually do this live, playing together in real time. That would be a beautiful thing.
But we could play it together live in real time if it weren't for coronavirus.
Well, yes, that's true. That is a very good point. That is a good point.
Miss you very, very much, by the way.
What's that?
Miss you very, very much.
Oh man, I miss you very much too. And you know, luckily we do get to do this kind of stuff. And actually, you know, you and I have been working on a couple of tunes together, and that's been really fun. And we I just sent Roger a drum track remotely, and Roger has been tracking a couple of tunes, sort of the goal of making possibly an EP of some sort, or just releasing singles, right? And we had Matthew lay down a bass part remotely, and so, you know, we are plunging ahead, you know, doing what we do, even in these crazy times. So, and I'm working on the next one for you, which kind of what you said the other day, it has a little bit of the war is already over vibe, which Matthew and I talked about a little bit in the last stream that he was in. Could you play that guitar part from the war is already over? Because that's kind of, that tune really had an impact on me, just as far as a feeling. It just made me feel something very different. Excellent.
Is it distorted, Benny?
I'll hit the chat window and we'll see what he says. mean, that's such an interesting part. To me, it feels like another time.
Well,
You
it
know,
was,
is that sort of accurate? Do you feel that?
yeah, I mean, it was sort of written because it was written about, the first verse is about the soldiers who fought in World War I in 1919. So I was kind of thinking about that, kind of like a real folky, Irishy kind of a thing. And it's very modal. So,
Hey, real quick, I just want to say hello to a couple of people, and we're going to get back to that. Dom Famularo is in the chat. Dom Famularo is my biggest mentor, and he is the global ambassador of drumming. Welcome, Dom. My students are going, hey, Dom, I love your sticks. So welcome, Dom Famularo. Meet Roger Street Friedman. You guys actually met at my book release party, right?
I remember.
Dom executive produced my book, and it's on his, he and Joe B's publishing label, Wisdom Media. And
I remember correctly, you paid him to say a lot of nice things about
I
you.
paid him a lot of money to say nice things about me. And he lives in Port Jefferson, and Roger here lives in Seacliff, which is in the northern coast of Long Island, right, on the North Shore. And it's a little town kind of up on a cliff that's 1 square mile, yes?
1 square mile.
And maybe a population of
about 5,000 people.
about 5,000 people. So another Long Island, well, you're a Long Island transplant back to Long Island, right? You were a Long Island native, moved to Brooklyn.
Then lived in Brooklyn for 29 years and then migrated back out here.
29 years. Wow.
Ellie was going into kindergarten.
So welcome, Dom. So glad you're in here. And I wanted to mention that, Dom, if you see Adam Seminara in the chat, that's Lucia. And Lucia is a fine young drummer, and she loves your pad sticks. So, yeah, she was mentioning that. And Rocco Deserto's in here. So, hey, Rocco. Hey, Louis Larson is in here. There's a whole bunch of folks. And I have a little surprise. If I can get my mouse over to that other window because I'm doing all this remotely. Matthew Schneider's about to join us.
Oh, awesome.
And then we're gonna all talk about Matthew.
Oh, not that guy.
There he is. Say hello to Roger. You know Roger Street Friedman.
Hey, Raj.
Hey, Matt, what's happening?
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
All right. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you, man. And yes, Ross Amoroso, The War's Already Over is the tune with the rocks. Yes. And we were just talking about that tune again because I was saying, Matthew, that it evokes a certain feeling of another time for me. And I find that tune to be just really interesting, and I kind of get lost in it. I feel like, and so Roger, you were mentioning the story a little bit, but it's 1919?
Yeah, so it was based on started out about an expeditionary force that was sent up to Siberia to fight the Bolsheviks after World War I had already ended. So these poor guys had already fought for many years in World War I, and our side, I guess, won the war. And after that, instead of bringing them home, we decided to send them to go help the Tsarist Russians, and it didn't go very well. So a lot of them froze to death up in Siberia.
It's just your average love song.
Just your average love song.
I know me, always picking the light material, the light subject matter.
Oh man. So let me get rid of the graphic. Oh, there it goes. Okay, good. So so we were just kind of talking about the parts. So Matthew, you can play a little bit, right?
Yeah, I got it right here.
So Roger's part, and we're doing this, in pieces, but Roger just played the guitar part, that main guitar part. What were you doing on bass in The War's Already Over, right when you come in?
So I actually play that on fretless bass, but this for now.
Yeah.
I remember when Matt started playing that in the studio when we were working out, I was like, everybody just went, yeah,
That's right.
was just the perfect part. And it
And
was so different, right? It wasn't just like a, which is what I would have played if I was playing.
right, right,
I
right.
always try to look for something melodic. You know, like I really love that in great songwriters often are really great bass players. Like Paul McCartney, the way his lines are so
Oh, yeah.
melodic. You know, and going way back, I mean, I have a lot of different musical interests, but Bach wrote really melodic bass lines, and so I'm just really attracted to that. You know, like trying to make it a line within itself that has its own integrity. You know, it's a counter melody almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And the kind of minimalist for the drums, right? I mean, I was doing kind of piecing that together, but and then this little. And it's sort of these little gears coming together to make the tune happen, right? Often I think that's kind of the way we work, right? As a rhythm section in the studio, trying to make the gears work and not, having everybody play. I've played on some recordings where the guitar player and the keyboard player and another guitar player are all strumming the same chords and not really finding how to interweave all the parts and the pieces.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when there's like two guitars, and they're playing the same thing, like that.
Right, right. It's sort
Really
of
have to differentiate the parts.
yeah, 100%, and kind of find the holes. I think Larry Campbell was really amazing at that, finding the holes in someone else's part and finding that little space where you could fill something in, whether it was something he did on the pedal steel or a fiddle part, right?
Well, it's interesting too because I've seen producers who, they just get the good players in the room and they like say, okay, do what you do. And I think they're thinking, and very often the recording session, the recording on the face of it is kind of chaotic, and you're thinking, because I have a studio here, and every once in a while I have sessions, and I'm thinking to myself, as with my engineering hat on, if I were producing this, I might tell the guitar player to stop, doing that real busy part when the other guy's doing that real busy part. But I think the producer is thinking in his head, I'm just going to cut that out there and have one of them, So
yeah, that's true.
Whereas Larry was like, if it didn't work, it wasn't going in.
Right. Yeah, that's
That's what I really was really impressed by. And then getting to work with him on his overdubs, sitting in the engineering chair, was also just like, because his process was really sort of going section by section and just finding the absolute most, like making all, like you said, making all the gears, all the cogs fit.
right.
And it was really tedious, but when it was all put together, it was like, oh my God, what
Yeah.
a vision.
Yeah. By the way, because I'm going to move on to another song in a minute, but I'm just going to play just a little piece of it.
In the winter of 1919, from the port of Archangel, a regiment marched through the frozen north in the general direction of hell. Misled by their majors, betrayed by command, their bodies shrunk down to the bone. Wounded men froze to death, waiting for help, help that was too slow to come.
Matthew, that's fretless bass, right?
That's fretless bass, yeah. And the first chorus too is just whole notes, just footballs.
Right.
All right, first verse.
Truth is he gave the last breath.
Here comes.
All right,
the
who
part
did that
show.
fill? Who did that guitar fill? Was that Larry?
That's Larry on the baritone guitar. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That you know what? It just reminded me of a little guitar fill in a Pink Floyd tune. Oh, what song is that in? Oh my goodness.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
In Run. It was a similar phrase anyway.
Right.
All right, wait 1 second. I'm just gonna play a little bit more.
A red rubber raft left a Turkish beach. Not one spit of land inside. No, the refugees searched for one glimpse of hope. Deep in the hopeless night, misled by the smuggler, they'd all piled in. A raft meant for 5, carrying 12. And that rolling dark sea capsized their dreams and took every last soul as well. Pray for the family that runs for their lives, seeking some kindness or cover. Hardest to kill is the will to survive, but the war is already over. The war is already over.
By the way, of course, the genius of Larry with the rocks, right? I mentioned that on the last stream that Matthew and I did, where we were like, "What is he talking about with these rocks?"
Even before the sessions, he said you've got to get a 5, whatever those things, 5-gallon water bottle from one of those water coolers.
Yeah,
Like, why do I need one of those? And we need some rocks.
he was talking about that like from the very beginning. We weren't even on the song yet. Oh, it's pretty funny. And it had to be the right amount of rocks and the right. Matthew and I were talking about even the right size of rocks in the bottle.
He filled it up and did the little test.
Yeah.
Matt, am I remembering correctly that you had that part, boom, dun, dun, boom, and then it was like just add that little don't, boom, don't, boom, boom, boom.
He had me do that in the verse. The part that part I think I came up with, but that little skip, boom, 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 in the chorus.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's cool.
Now, is the organ sounding part? What is that?
So there's 2. There's the harmonium, which I have over here.
Oh wait, can we see that on the camera? There it is.
Thing.
You know what's so funny? I love Steve. We'll have to have Steve in one night, but he can never remember the name of the instrument. All right.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do they call that thing again? What is a harmonium, by the way? Explain that.
You want me to play it?
Sure. Yeah. So the harmonium, it made its appearance on a few tunes, right?
Yeah. Lessons and War, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, and Rise and. Of course.
So I mean,
The instrument actually comes from India, which is kind of cool. It's used for like devotional purposes, like in ceremonies, as a drone to chant along with.
yeah, it almost appears to be sort of like an accordion without the without.
It's the same.
It's the same principle. Yeah.
So that thing that he's moving is air. It's moving air.
So in the actual in the verses, Jason Crosby's playing that. in the, over this part. And it's a real kind of aggressive sound. And then when it goes to the pre-chorus, he switched to a really mellow, like pipe organ sound on the Hammond.
Right.
It's like this tension and release thing that I was blown away by. That just, switching, it's still an organ, it's still a keyboard, and it's still a pad, but it's just a different tonality. And it really lets the pre-chorus breathe and open up. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And it was fun, like being out on the road and carrying that thing into gigs and with a piece of plywood and trying to set this thing up, because it's an odd shaped unit, right? I mean, it's kind of a big box.
The box, and it needed a keyboard stand, but the keyboard stand was too wide, so we got a big piece of plywood, and then I wound up leaving all of that in Richmond at the Tin Pan.
Whoa, well, what can you do?
However, one of our fans picked it up for me, and it's in his basement in Richmond for the next time we get down there.
Nice. Once COVID's over and we get back out, right?
All right. Oh, yeah.
We have a schedule tour for September, but it's not. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I have to say that, it was a bummer. I mean, for everybody that couldn't go out on the road and go out on tour, but, we missed our album release as far as the show that was planned and all the shows following that were planned, as did every musician. But, that was a little tough. And then, of course, you did it sort of virtually, the album release. And now you've been kind of, you basically were releasing singles at first, right, from the record. And the whole thing is out, and now videos have been released, really great animated videos, which we love being preserved in as ink figures.
We look so good.
We do. It's like forever young. Although I have a complaint on one of the older videos. I think it was Shoot the Moon. Which tune was it? The drum set was lefty. They got that detail.
Tidal Wave.
And Tidal Wave. But on this last one, the drum set's righty, and I'm offended.
That's it. Final straw.
That's it, man. They missed
not
that.
having it.
Not having this righty stuff.
You got to put that into the contract next time, Jim.
Yeah, I will. I actually will do that.
Yeah, so there's a video out for Rise.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
The video for Carry Me has actually gotten like 65,000 hits on Facebook.
Oh, that's great.
Wow, that's cool. I had no idea.
A lot of people clicking through to Spotify to follow us on Spotify, which is cool.
That's great. Yeah, I actually opened the last show when Matthew and I played. I think I opened with Carry Me, right, Matthew? I did one of my shows. I opened with Carry Me, but I'm going to play that for a moment, and we'll talk about that. This mandolin part is like a nice, very simple drum part, right?
Try to understand. I'm a working man. Been on my own since I was 18. Rooming with the roaches down on Bleecker Street. Learning the hard way.
So that tune. Oh, hello. That tune wants to just keep playing. Come on. iTunes is not cooperating. Come on, baby. I'll just turn it down. So that tune's got mandolin and fiddle. Great parts happening in that. We talked about Matthew's part on the last live, but
I think it played upright on that one, right, Raj?
Yeah. Played upright. In fact,
There it
I
is.
think that was one of the ones we might have had to have re-record because of the
The clasp.
oh my God, I forgot about that whole thing. We wanted to forget about that whole thing. So
I have a funny story to tell. you remember like something was just not sounding right. I mean, aside from the analog problem that we had,
Right.
there's something going on, and I just don't know what it is. I discovered about a month or two after the session that one of the woofers on the main monitors over there, uh, the wire had come loose. So we're only getting those big speakers. We're only getting bass out of the left side, not the right side.
Oh my goodness.
Um, so
That would do it.
we did mostly the whole record like that.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny. I mean, the clasp thing, like just explain to people what that is, because that was, first of all, Roger has an incredible studio at his place in Seacliff, and it's really I think a beautiful facility built in his house, and it really has some amazing equipment inside of there. But explain what the clasp part of it is.
So I can't turn the camera,
No, that's okay, but you can explain.
there's a 24 track tape machine, 2-inch tape machine in the corner. And the way people used to record was to tape, and there was no digital recording, and you'd have to like nail the parts and commit what you were doing to tape. And if you got it right, it sounded great because it was analog and it was big and fat and warm. And but digital recording came along and is much more convenient for editing. You can do a million tracks and piece them all together and make this great final product, but you lose the sound of tape. So clasp marries the two together, and it's just a device that sort of, to not get too far into the weeds, syncs up the tape machine with Pro Tools. So you record through the tape sound into the computer, and you can do all the editing. So you get all the sound of tape, but all the editing of digital.
It's a marriage made in heaven,
It is.
and it's a big, fat, warm sound, much like my Aunt Rosie. She was wonderful. I don't. Thank you. I'll be here all week. So the clasp thing didn't always happen, right? So
Right.
occasionally.
Well, we had a there was actually what I discovered, the issue that we were having and was that the tape machine was not aligned properly, and then and then a big thing, then we smelled smoke.
I remember that.
One of the power supplies had burnt up, and we had the tech, and we switched to all digital for some of the songs, and then we had the tech guy in here, and then he was consulting with shirtless David Crosby down in Nashville.
Yes, I remember.
There's this guy who unfortunately has since passed away. Really nice guy, but he was this kind of crazy, curly white hair, and you'd Skype with him, and he would give you technical advice on the tape machine. He was like the
Right.
MCI tape guru, and he'd be smoking cigarettes and it would be and drinking beer like at 10 o'clock in the morning, and so.
With no shirt on.
No shirt on, and Bob Schuster, the tech guy, had him up on the laptop while he was working on the
Oh,
machines.
yeah.
We were in the studio over there looking through, and we were working still while Bob was working, and we could see shirtless David Crosby on the laptop. So
Brilliant. Yeah. So, but that whole idea of clasp, I mean, when it works, it's great, and it does really warm up the sound, and it's kind of rare. I mean, I haven't seen it that often in people's studios. So, I think it's
a group of engineers who use it.
Yeah.
And everybody loves it and hates it at the same time.
Now. Vincent has a question. He said, and this might have been, by the time the chat filters in, it sometimes it takes a little while. But it says he had a question. What is it like when you have a top writer producer such as Larry, who points you in a direction against what you originally had in your gut, as far as the direction or arrangement? How does that feel when that I mean, because in the end, I think you agreed on everything pretty much when you hear it. But when that happens, when you're thinking something, and all of a sudden you get spun by the producer, speak to that.
Well, I approach this like whatever he says goes, and the only example I would say that was really kind of a departure. I mean, they all were certainly different than they all evolved on their own into a certain final product. But most of them were pretty close in terms of, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Tough Crowd was really different, because I had more of a Tom Petty feel, and he went to more like almost Jimmy Buffett, right? With that.
That's right. Actually, let me throw that on, and I have to say, I mean, that's one of the tunes. Larry and I, luckily, we agreed on the drum parts almost the whole time. There weren't, he would make suggestions, and it was always like one little note here, one little thing there, and I was really proud of that groove for that tune, just in its simplicity, but kind of giving it sort of this island kind of feel. It's really interesting. Let me throw that on real quick.
Before you press play.
Yeah.
Larry said to me, after you guys left, but about both of you and about Jimmy's, like, Jimmy's a guy who could really. There was a conflict at one point between their drummer who was touring, and they might have had to have gone out without their drummer, and he was like, Jimmy's a guy I could pull in on this gig if I know that I could call him if I need to, and I think.
Wow.
Yeah, that
phrase, man.
Yeah, that was really nice hearing that vote of confidence on his part.
I remember him saying a number of times about both of you, those are some bad mofos.
Nice. Yeah.
That's highest praise.
Yeah. You gotta, that definitely makes you feel good at the end of the day when you hear Larry Campbell saying that to you. I'm gonna throw this tune on real quick. That's Runaway Girl. Here's Tough Crowd. Oh wait, hold on one second. So that's why it wasn't working before. I kind of got logged out over here. Apologies. Let's make sure we can do this.
Talk amongst ourselves.
Yeah, I had the. I wanted to add that I had the feeling that, to Vincent's question, he never took us in a different direction. That it was kind of like we were just in sync.
Yeah, that's true.
I felt like we were sharing the vision, and he just took it to a higher level.
100%.
He just pulled us up.
I think when you work with somebody of that caliber, the reason you're working with them is for what they bring. It was so liberating actually to just be like, I'm the songwriter and I'm just going to let the producer produce. Right. I'm going to try to be the artist. And
I think musically though, we're kind of in the same wheelhouse, it's roots, acoustic style and or Americana influence, all that, the fiddling thing. We have that, each of us as musicians. It's kind of in our thing already. So we're speaking the same language. It's not like some, you can have a really great producer who does like more of a pop kind of thing or whatever.
Right.
It's going to be just a very different angle. That would have been harder, But I think like we're just speaking the same language.
Yeah, and the choice of Larry producing this record, there's a certain level of trust that you have to have with each other from producer to artist, and I think that was already built in there, and I think all of us just trusted him to be leading us in the right direction. And like Roger said before, there were times when, he would just sit there for what seemed like an eternity with his fingers over his eyes and just like, and all of a sudden he would just go. and then he had the one little tiny idea that just changed the way everything kind of flowed.
Yeah.
And we trusted in that process, right?
Yeah, and one thing that really impressed me, I mean, I guess, Jason, who played keyboards when he came in to do his overdubs, I mean, he's no slouch. He's the guy's
Yeah.
touring with Phil Lesh and freaking played with John McLaughlin. Toured with John McLaughlin on his final tour, and he was awestruck working with Larry. He was
Yeah.
he and I were on the same page. He was just a kid in a candy store kind of thing. So
Here, I'm going to hit the play on this
Wow.
one and give us a little taste just of, and it definitely, I mean, I think anybody that hears it would have that impression. Like you might hear this down in the keys.
Been another long day in a string of long days. Makes me wonder why I even try. 'Cause when I see your face, feels like I'm up on a stage. Oh, and you just roll
We sort of Motowned it on the pre-chorus.
your eyes. I'm up here doing my best to look on your
Yeah, Sarah on
face
every
and
beat.
not
Yeah.
rest. All this time trying to figure you out. Baby, you're a tough crowd.
Matthew, play that bass line. Yeah, that's like, grab a margarita, go down by the beach.
Definitely. I mean, and at that point, we were trying to find a different feel, because we were kind of getting into everything being like Carry Me, had kind of a country feel
Right,
thing
right.
going on. And so we're just trying something different. So we actually started with like a pseudo Latin kind of vibe, and
Yeah,
then kind
yeah.
of morphed into that.
I'm gonna play the drum groove real quick,
Yeah.
which is let me see. So So it definitely has the framework of being a little more leaning towards Latin. It's got a little clave kind of built into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then Roger, what's your rhythm part on that?
well, for the guitar, I'm really just playing, but
Yeah.
what Larry's doing is the what is it?
Yeah, it's definitely, it sets up telling the story really well, which is what all these tunes should do, right? I mean, ultimately, you're telling a story, and the lyrics are the star of the show.
Yeah,
not,
I mean,
not you, Roger. The lyrics.
that's for sure.
No, but I mean, it really, allows the story to be told without being obstructed by things that don't need to be there. I think it's really well put together and showcases some amazing songwriting for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, and just working on it with you guys, I mean, I think one of the things that's so critical to a successful project is to hang in the studio and to like the people you're working with. And I mean, I think that was, we had that in abundance.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I know you guys talked behind my back a lot, but I let it go.
Mostly good things. Don't worry. We went pretty easy on you. Plus, I got to stay at your house for like a week, almost a week and a half, and in which time my family went out and purchased a gigantic dog while I was gone. But yeah, that was great staying at your
You're
place.
easily replaceable, Jimmy.
That's right. I was replaced by a very large white golden doodle. But I loved staying at your house and the whole process of, we would get up, get some espresso, go downstairs, listen to everything we had worked on, right?
Yeah.
It
And
was-
you and I retract a couple. We retract 4 or 5 of these drum parts because we had that issue with the tape alignment.
with the class thing and everything, yeah. So we went in
think
there.
I did some of those too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Track some of those, yeah.
And we did it before Larry got here, and I know he was very relieved when he got here and listened to it. He was like, "Phew."
Yeah, exactly. So we took the initiative to get in there and do it while we were missing the.
That's another thing about this that was so different. This whole session, it's like it was 5 days, I think we did of just rhythm section, to to have it at this space available to us to try things. We weren't counting, we weren't counting the hours, on the clock.
Yeah.
Renting space. It was so great to be able to just have it was a much more organic process.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it would be nice to do a studio tour in a live stream sometime because Roger's studio is really beautiful. What a
We'll have-
nice facility.
Tell me how to get another camera into this.
Yeah, we can work on that.
Yeah.
We're like coming up on the end of the hour, so I think it was super fun to talk about this stuff with you guys and kind of the whole process and I think it's interesting, hearing kind of behind the scenes of how some of the stuff gets put together and I'm gonna keep using the tracks in my live streams and showcasing, the tunes. By the way, I'm sure I've mentioned this to a lot of people, but some of the tunes on the last record on Shoot the Moon are play-alongs inside of my book. So there's play-along charts, and you can play along with the drum parts and play along with Roger and Matthew and myself and some of the other musicians. So that's been super fun, and I always feel grateful to Roger for allowing me to bring the music into the book, which I think I really wanted to do because that's the stuff that I do. So I wanted that to be part of what I teach. Yeah, man.
It's great.
And Matthew, by the way, is teaching bass, and 2 of his students are in this live stream.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is here, and Vincent.
Lucia and Vincent.
All right.
So
Excellent.
and follow Roger on social media as well. He's been doing a lot of interviews, right? And Roger's been live streaming himself. When are you live streaming, Roger?
Well, I have the next one is actually there's a radio station out in Monterey that's playing the bejesus out of the record, and
Great.
they asked me to do a live stream tomorrow at 9 p.m. That radio station is KPIG, so I'll be live streaming from here, but on their Facebook page.
Okay.
And then if you follow me on the Facebook page or Instagram or Twitter, Instagram is Roger Street Friedman, Facebook is Roger Street Friedman, Twitter is RSF Music. Then I don't have another. Oh, I am actually doing a live stream on Wednesday night at 7:30 from Port Washington.
Okay.
And that'll be on my. The link to it will be on my Facebook page. I'm sure at some point.
All right. Great.
And then I've been doing like every 2 weeks a live stream from here to raise money for Long Island Cares, which is a really great food bank, because this COVID crisis has really affected the people who are food insecure all over the country. But we're trying to just to help the local people here. But
Great. That's great.
and yeah, and follow on Spotify too would be great, because that's actually a really important metric in the music business these days, is how many Spotify followers are actually your fans.
Oh, sweet. All right. So make sure you step up there on the Spotify platform. Matthew, how about you? Anything you want to plug or?
Well, this is the Woodshed here, and we do lessons here, and everything is on Zoom right now, so we can do lessons from anywhere. We have violin, viola, cello, upright bass, electric bass, guitar, piano. So if anybody's interested in that, looking for lessons, they can reach us at seacliffmusic.com or seacliffmusic@gmail. And Roger, you have what was it, KPIG radio station?
KPIG radio station.
K-Pig.
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 Awesome.
Okay.
That's like the coolest radio station name ever. You had me there, K-Pig.
You know, if Tony Pig
Roger Street.
was the DJ at K-Pig, that would be pretty amazing.
Tony Pig.
Remember Tony Pig? Guys, this was a really, really great hang.
Yeah, man.
We've got to do it again. And Bob Sears says he's got you on Spotify, Roger. Ross Amoroso said he's interested in bass lessons. Maybe he'll reach out to you. Let's go Thunderstruck. Somebody from Twitch just wrote, okay, let's go Thunderstruck. Or Wildside. All right. And thanks for everybody for hanging out. We're going to wrap it up now. And I'll see you on the next live stream. Thursday night, we're doing the hand technique workshop. So come down, bring your sticks and a pad, and we'll do some workouts. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take it easy, everybody.
All right. Good night now.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye, Matt.
Bye-bye.